I need you to open up to slide 25 in your evolution notes where it says types of selection. I'm going to talk about 3 different types of selection that can happen in a population. Directional selection, in this graph you see that the original population is in that dotted line, and then the new population after natural selection has happened is the solid line. And on the x-axis you see the beak size, and then the y-axis the number of birds in a population. Originally, the beak size was best to have a medium-sized beak. There wasn't very many short or small, and there wasn't very many large. After natural selection, probably because of a food source, it was now best to have a large beak. So those large beak birds were able to eat the food, reproduce, and pass those large beak genes onto the next generation. So now there really wasn't any that were going to be short or small beaks. Less were going to be medium-sized beaks, and many more were going to be large beaks. So it's selecting for one extreme. This could also be the case for smaller too. This line can shift over to the other way as well. In stabilizing selection, this is choosing for the middle value. And in this example, it talks about birth mass. So average birth mass for a baby around 6 to 8, 9 pounds. Not very many babies are born, very little, 1 to 2 pounds. Very little babies are also going to be born over 11, 12, 13 pounds. They're usually delivered before they get that big. So now it's kind of squished for the middle to be the best. And then the 2 extremes, very, very, very little of that. In disruptive selection, the middle is not going to be advantageous in that environment. Both extremes, though, would be. So in this case, we bring back the beak size. The beak size on the x-axis, number of birds on the y-axis. And you see that it's really good to have a small beak and a large beak, but the medium-sized beak is not advantageous. It's not beneficial for whatever reason. I'm pretty sure it'd be about food. Remember that you cannot choose which trait you have. It's something in the environment that is going to do this type of selection. On the next slide, you have 3 practice examples. So I want you to go ahead and try those where you're going to look at graphs and tell me, is it stabilizing selection, directional selection, or disruptive selection? In this practice, this first one, you see a peppered moth example. The original population is in blue, and it's got the peppered moth look where it's white and black. After natural selection has happened, the red line showing that the dark is actually going to be the best variation here, probably because of camouflage onto the bark of the tree. Can't see me, can't eat me. So this would be an example of directional selection where it's choosing for one extreme over the other. In this example, the second one, you see the mice and their colors. In the original population, right, there's really light mice to really dark mice, but as that population has evolved, the natural selection is choosing for the medium. Probably again for camouflage. So that would be considered stabilizing selection. It's choosing for the medium, and the 2 extremes do not survive in that environment. This one with the bunnies, the original population is in blue, and then the red is the population after natural selection has happened, and 2 of the extremes have been chosen for in that environment, and that would be considered disruptive since the middle is not advantageous in that environment. You're going to go to your story today and look at what is it that your population of your creature is showing. Is it best to be one of the extremes where it's really small or really large or many type horns, like many horns or less horns? Whatever it is that you decided, it could also be color. Is it going to choose for one extreme or the other? That's directional. If it's choosing for the middle ground, that would be stabilizing. If the 2 extremes would be the best and the middle is the worst, that would be disruptive. When you look at your checklist for your evolution storybook in formative, you see all the things that need to be in for part 1. This is something that you're going to work on today. We are going to have some time in class on Monday as well, but it's due on Monday. This part 1 will be due on Monday. So if you haven't finished your brainstorming session, that needs to get done first. That was this here, where you had to tell me what your species looked like and where it lived and what one trait were you going to vary and what were all those variations. What's going to do the selecting? Something in the environment, something like weather or climate, food, a predator, being able to catch their prey. Something was going to select for which of those variations, those traits, were going to be best. And then you tell me what's going to be best and why, what's going to die off and why. And then that last question was about those, the graphs that we just talked about. So you have page 1 is your cover page. This is the title of your book, your species name, and you have some kind of visual representation of your species. Now that same picture can be used for page 2, where you talk about your species creation. Tell me about your species, where it lives, what it eats, what eats it, anything about your species that would be important information. Once you get to page 3, this is when you're talking about your variations. And notice in each of these pages you have underlined words that you need, so make sure that you use them correctly. On page 3, you need to draw your 4 to 5 organisms that are showing your slight variations, that are natural variations that happen in this population. Please make sure that you do not use the word adapted. Keep it as adaptation, because you don't want it to sound like they had the ability or the choice to adapt to the environment. They are born with their traits. That's what they have. If it is beneficial in that environment, it's going to get passed down through reproduction. If not, they're going to die off and not reproduce. Then natural selection has happened. So over time, some of yours are dying off because of natural selection, something in the environment selecting for those best traits, and some were surviving. So now what does your population look like? And then page 5, this is where you're going to be using your graph, and you are going to have to draw a graph, either disruptive or stabilizing or directional graph. So you're going to show a picture of what happened after many generations, and using your graph and describing the variations that happened before and then after natural selection. Why did these species increase or decrease in their variation, in their adaptation that they had? How your population has evolved over time, and then that directional, stabilizing, or disruptive type selection. And then also how long the process took. So this is all of part 1, again, 5 pages here that you need to be working on right now. You can use your notes to help you, use your brainstorming to help you, and then 5 pages that are going to be due by Monday as a test grade. If you have questions, feel free to email me and I can help through email. Please be on your best behavior for the sub and be productive, as we are starting to run out of time this semester. And remember, this is a test grade. We want to make sure that this is done and done well. And again, if you have any questions, please email me.